Hello fellow Scratchers, I'm Griffpatch. Do you see anything extra cool about this scene, apart from that overly large Scratch Cat? Oh boy yes, look at that pose, look at their feet, look at their legs, what magic is this? Indeed, welcome to part 4 of our classic Scratch platformer tutorial. We've covered player movements, collisions, scene switching, and in the last episode, player animation. That was so cool. And today, we are talking about character posing and slopes. We'll begin by fixing it so our player isn't stopped in their tracks by a minor bump in the road. Then, we'll fix the issue with standing on ridiculously steep slopes. And finally, you must stay tuned as we add support for new standing poses and automatic feet leveling. Oh my, what an episode! Of course, for those of you who have chosen to use your own player sprite, I'm sure Scratchy doesn't mind. Yes, this episode is also for you. However, we are focusing on you, Scratchy. We begin by saving a new copy of our episode 3 scripts. Good to keep a backup. And then name this one as episode 4. Let me just hide these old variable reporters for a clean stage. Super! Up until now, we designed our level to avoid having any slopes because, well, our player is completely incapable of even stepping over a tiny lump in the ground. At least without jumping, of course. So we must begin by updating our level. Click into the level sprite and then the costumes tab. I'm going to draw a curved bit of level in the lower right of the canvas. Draw a square. Then, with the shaping tool, select the top right point and delete it, either by pressing delete or pressing the delete key. Then grab the middle of the line and drag it inwards to form a beautiful curve. You can tweak it to look just right. There, that will do nicely. While we're at it, I'll also reshape this floating platform into a useful diamond platform. Good, that should work well. Run the project and let's see what we have to work with. We're pretty nimble, able to jump onto and run down slopes, but can we run up? No siree, we end up just running on the spot. Not very impressive. To fix this, we need to look back at our Define Move in Steps custom block. This clever block splits a big movement into smaller steps so that we can detect a collision and stop the player as soon as that occurs. To allow the player to walk up slopes, we just need to relax this rule a little and see if moving the player up a little might also get us out of the collision. Doing this over the course of a full movement will guide the player up a gentle slope. Okay, this is the movement loop. And here is where we move the player in the X direction. The collisions are detected here. So pull out the setX and setSpeedX blocks. We'll make a new custom block to replace these, naming it Collide X, Slope or Wall. Attach the define block to the scripts we moved out and replace them with a fresh Collide X block. Great, now we can work on pushing the player upwards. Basically, if there is space to move a player up, then we should do so. Therefore, begin by changing Y by 1. Then check whether we're touching anything solid. If touching is greater than 0, then we are indeed not out of the ground yet. But perhaps we might try moving up one more time. Duplicate the whole change Y stack and put it in the if. Right, so if again we are not out of the collision, perhaps we've hit a wall. Let's return the player's Y position back to its original value. Change Y by -2. Then, since this is not a slope after all, bring back those 2 blocks to push the player out of the wall as before. Finally, stop this script. But if the player has successfully moved out of the ground, then we accept this new position and continue the script without backing out. And up the slope we should go. Nice! Let's give it a test. Hit the green flag, run down and then back up. Oh yeah, look at that. This is excellent news. No more stubbed toes or excess jumping for us. We are a lean, mean, hill-running machine. But perhaps there's something amiss here. Obviously there's a limit on how steep Scratch Cat will climb, But do you notice how Scratchy appears to actually move quicker as they travel up the slope? But that's because our speed x is staying constant, but we are adding to our total speed by also moving upwards now. To combat this, we need the act of climbing a hill to simply slow down our player. This collide script only runs when we are going up a hill. So, to slow the player down, set speed x to speed x multiplied by 0.95. This is the effect of making the speed just a little bit less each time the player is moved up by a collision. Running that now. And wow, it's surprisingly effective. The slope takes the edge off Scratcat's top speed. But the last, steeper incline, that's still too fast. Okay, so duplicate the set speed x and bring within the if above. This only runs if we're moving up a steeper incline. Change the multiple to 0.8. This will really slow the player down a lot more, and you can play with these values to get the effect you want for your game. Green flag. Oh, and I think we have ruined Scratchy's hill running dreams, but the good news is that it's looking a lot more natural. Sorry about that, Scratch Cat. Next, we'll talk about the downhill skipping effect. Oh gosh, this is a common problem. When our player hits the ground, we naturally set their speed y to 0. But when running down a slope, this has the effect of suddenly making us change direction and literally sends us skipping our way down the slope. It's not an awful problem, but we can do better. We need to preserve some of the downward motion after a collision to allow a more smooth descent. Find the define move in steps script again. This time we are looking for the vertical movement. That's the y direction down here. Just like before, we'll pull out the scripts within the if, the set y and below, into some free space, and then make a new custom block naming it collide y, ceiling or floor. We'll use the scripts we just removed as the body of this new define block, and pop a new collide y block in their place. Cool, we are on our way. So we only want to alter the downward movement after a collision. Ignore upwards motion for now. In that case, use a new if. This time checking that speed y is greater than 0, rather than less than. So when it's greater than 0, it's moving upwards. So just set speed y to 0 and stop this script. Functionally no different from before. But otherwise, yes, we can set falling to 0. We're on the ground now. But what about the speed y? Well, we don't want to set it to 0, but we do need it to reduce in that direction. A quick trick is to set speed y to speed y multiplied by 0.8 again, hopefully leaving them enough momentum to slide on down the slope, but slowing them enough to remove any weird side effects. Let's give it a test. So we run up the hill, and then down we go. Oh cool! This is much better. Once Scratchy is dashing down the hill, his downward momentum keeps him tightly on the slope. Hold on, let me do a quick side-by-side comparison. The video on the right is the updated scripts, and oh boy yes, the new scripts have it. They are silky smooth. I'm well pleased with that. There comes a point, though, when we cannot continue to ignore our player's strange ability to stand on a really, really steep slope. Look at this, hanging on by a toe. It's pretty obvious that if we tried this at home, we'd be sliding down this hill on our faces. So what do we do now about these inclines? Although they may not look like it here, their collision shapes are actually made up of jagged runs of pixels, like this. Our player's hitbox is catching its toe on one of these, and the cat thinks it's on a platform. To get around this, we need to check whether our player can move across and down by 2 pixels. If there's no collision there to stop them, then we'll let them slip off down the slope. Okay, let's do this. We start by making a new custom block, naming it slip. Still within the define collide y scripts, place an if block around the set falling and check whether falling is greater than 0. We only want to trigger a slip call in here when we just land. Otherwise, we'll be calling this from elsewhere. You'll see in a mo. So drop in our slip block. Great, so we can change y by -2 to check below the player, but also we change x by 1 to look to the right. Next we check whether we are touching solid, and use an if touching is less than 1. This means we are not touching the ground in this direction, so we want to slip. The first thing we do is set falling to 9. This needs some explanation. It's a little trick because the falling variable is used to prevent the player from jumping while they're in the air. By setting this to a number larger than 3 or so, we will be preventing the player from jumping when they are slipping down a slope like this. Now you may think this is counterproductive because we may want to add wall jumping later, but don't fear, that is a completely different mechanic altogether. Another tweak to make is to change our speed x by 1. That will accelerate the player to the right a little bit as we slip down, and then stop this script. But what if we are not slipping? We have to undo the previous move we made up here. So change y by 2 this time, and then change x by -1. Super! That's slopes that go downhill to the right sorted. Let's give that little beauty a test. Okay, I don't care what you say, that actually looks really cool. When we land on a slope, we slide right down. I'll just make sure I can still stand on a less steep slope over here. Yeah, no sliding down. That's really good, really good. Well, since that's working, we should complete our scripts by adding the left-hand slopes too. Duplicate everything from the check touching solid block. We've checked down 2 pixels and to the right by 1. We just need to move left by 2 steps, then to check for the left-hand slopes, and get rid of the change y block, and change x by -2 instead. Pop these scripts back at the bottom. It's all very similar, except now we change our speed x by -1 to accelerate the player off to the left. Finally, make sure to update the last change x by to be 1 now, to bring us back to where we started. Now I can't test this yet on my level, as I don't have any left-hand slopes. I better quickly pop one in. There, that's it. And we can test. I just need to jump up to the right, and you can see there that there's no way I can get a footing on this now. I slide right off. Success is ours. You may notice that we see a bit of jitter when running up a slope, and we've reached a point where we can't go any further. Do you see that? Okay, it's not a problem. Find the define Clyde X script, and right on the bottom, pop a slip block too. This ensures we're always checking for slips, whether we're colliding from falling on the ground or from running across it. Testing again, running up the slope now, and that's considerably better. Good job. Now, if you are sticking to using a square player costume, like Guy, then I'd suggest you might be able to skip the rest of the episode or just make use of the parts that you want. However, for players who stand up straight, this is going to be cool. It's time to take a second look at advanced hitboxes. Standing just here, I gotta say it's perhaps a little odd that we still appear to be balanced perfectly on one toe. It would be so much better if the centre of our sprite costume could sit on the ground rather than the edge of our hitbox. This is especially an issue when we stand on the edge of a step, like this. We prefer him to slip off at this point, really. Luckily, due to our recent changes to slip the player down slopes, we can now do something quite awesome in the world of hitboxes. Click into the player's costumes and find the hitbox costume 20. This was perfectly rectangular to avoid any snagging on the edges of platforms. But now with the slip block, we are a little more free to experiment with shape. So click into the next costume, Hitbox version 2. So what you will notice is that the bottom of the hitbox is a sharp point. This is placed on the floor between Scratch's feet. When on a slope, it means that the hitbox will no longer balance on a corner. The next interesting thing is that the top of the hitbox is much wider than before. This allows us to accommodate for Scratch Cat's large head, preventing it overlapping the ground quite so much. But how come we can use this shape now when previously we said we needed a perfect rectangle? Well, the answer is that the slip feature we just added will automatically cause our player to slip off steep edges, and that includes the steep edges of our hitbox. Let's just give that a try. Find the When I Receive Tick First script. Now switch the hitbox to hitbox 2. Don't forget, we also need to do the same in the Define Begin Scene script here. So hit the green flag and let's see. Right off, we find our feet are planted centrally on the curve of the ground rather than above it. That's good. And now off we go to the right, we'll find that we can no longer squish right up against the wall like we used to. Another boon. So how about the edge of steps? Oh yes, this is excellent. Our player now slips off the very edge and is pushed away from the wall by our new conical hitbox. Wonderful! So just test now that the slopes are still behaving themselves as before. Yes indeed. Cool. So, now the player is more closely hugging the ground, but our feet, they are still looking a little odd, one hanging in the air and the other clipping into the ground. It would make sense for the feet to be level with the slope we are standing on. What can we do about this? Well, we could switch the player rotation style to all directions and try to match the player's direction to the floor. But while this might look great for vehicles, small cube players, or even blue hedgehogs, it's just not suitable for slower moving bipeds like Scratch Cat. Instead, we want to keep the player upright and adjust their legs and feet to accommodate the change of the slope. This does require drawing extra costumes for the possible slopes we might stand on, but luckily for you, if you've taken a peek in the costumes I provided, you will find costumes 28 to 32 very interesting. Here, if I click on costume 29, you can see Scratch Cat is far better posed for the slope now. Not perfect, but when they are small again, very acceptable. Equally, I can move them over here. We can check the standing costumes again, and perhaps this one? Okay, there. This one works well. To draw these costumes, I simply started with the default standing pose, and then drew a line passing through the middle point between their feet. The rear foot then needs to be drawn a little bit higher up and the back foot lower down. You may find you need to reposition the player's body too to avoid the front leg stretching too long. Now, as a quick note, if you're trying to angle a player sprite like Guy, you may indeed want to use rotation to put them at a suitable angle with the slope. But it's a lot more tricky to get right with this technique. So, how many poses will we need to draw? Well, it's up to you. But I find even just 5 standing poses is quite adequate. What's more, we don't even need to redraw any costumes for the running poses, as when they're moving around, the issue of where their feet are positioned is much less obvious. So we have these 5 poses. The next problem is working out how to get Scratch to pick the right one for the right situation. We'll need some way in code of examining the ground at their feet. The simplest way to achieve this would be as follows. We draw a specialised hitbox for each standing pose, shaping them to match the position of just the player's feet. Then, to find which standing pose to use, we switch through each of the hitboxes to find the one that does not collide with the level. The first pose is the flat ground pose. Oh, it's the same colour as the level. Hold on, I'll change that. So now you can see the hitbox is touching the ground. From that, we can deduce that the start ground pose will not work. We try the next hitbox. Nope, this is also touching the ground. Hitbox 3 then. Aha! This one does not touch the ground. The third hitbox is the winner. Now, since we are very forward thinking, we set up our standing costumes in the same order as the angled hitboxes. This way, the third hitbox means we switch to the third standing costume. Click! And there you go, we found our pose. Excellent. This works just as well on any slope in our game. I think it's time to get scratching. Find with me the Define Set costume. Since all we are doing is leveling off the cat's feet, this is the best place to do the job. Scroll down to the bottom to where we are setting the costume to stand. We'll start by setting the costume to the first of the 5 hit angle costumes. It's called Hit Angle 0. Then we loop through them with a repeat for a count of 5. So firstly is our hit angle sprite colliding with the level. Check touching solid, and then if touching is less than 1. The hit angle costume is not touching the level, so great, we found the angle of the ground. We now want to switch to the matching Scratch Cat costume. We need to move 5 costumes forward, so use an addition block, starting with the current costume number, and then add 5. Super! So then, we can stop this script. We would be done. But if the hit angle costume did not touch the level, then we should move on to the next hit angle costume before this repeat block loops around and off these scripts go again. Then finally, if none of the hit angle costumes worked, then we just switch costumes back to the original standing costume for good measure. Shall we give that a try? Wow, I forgot how big I'd made this guy, but at least he's got his feet in the right place. Let me just shrink him down a touch, back to 40. Great, now, notice how, as I turn left and right, his feet remain rooted on the slope. And I can move to the less angled ground. Oh yes, I'm loving this very much. It even looks quite cool when one leg is dangling off the edge of a step. You may find you need to tweak your angled hitboxes until you get the best slope detection, but these costumes are working really well here. Wow, this episode is drawing to a close, but we are in an awesome place now, ready to look at adding seriously cool wall jumping and sliding. I'm so excited for that, along with moving platforms, another favourite of mine. I do hope you've enjoyed watching today. Please smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest videos. If you are a loyal fan or an educator, then please can I encourage you to support the channel further by joining the channel membership. I do what I can to make you the best videos possible, and the extra support is really appreciated. Thank you so much, and thank you for watching. Hope you have a great week ahead, and scratch on, guys.